when the sun down, my mind is on the rundown. I be feeling like my happiness is on the come down. But when I speak to you, I feel like it's a touchdown. Finally found me someone I can really trust now. I always have so much to say, but no one to say it to. If I can talk to you today, I know I can make it through. So let's have this conversation, like a radio station. So let's have this conversation, like a radio station.
It's finally Friday, and it's time for the conversation with Maria Byrd.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. You are listening to The Conversation with Maria Byrd. And guess what, you guys? I'm super excited about today's show because we have with us a very special guest. She is a Howard alumni and Emory Law grad. Her first 4 years were within the private sector, representing citizens of Fulton County and surrounding areas in criminal cases, juvenile matters, family law, and civil disputes alike. These experiences ignited her indelible commitment to serve the people above the solitary focus of efficiently practicing law. In 2000, she served 1 year as an assistant solicitor for the city of Atlanta, and in 2001 made the leap into the Fulton County DA's office as an assistant district attorney. After a short 3 years, she was put into position to serve in a dual capacity with the Major Case and Cold Case Division from 2004 to 2012. She navigated the mammoth caseload with such poise and brilliance that it garnered a promotion. Deputy District Attorney of the Complex Trial Division. In every position held, she has worked as lead counsel on an array of case types, including but not limited to rape, child molestation, domestic violence, armed robbery, and homicide. Please help me welcome to the show my very special guest, Fulton County Superior Court Judge-elect, Fani Willis. Welcome to the show, Fani.
Hey, good morning. I am so happy to be here this morning. And I, like you, are talking things to in existence. I am not quite judge-elect, but I'm trying to get elected. So I like the title. I'll take it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. How are you?
I am doing awesome this morning. I'm excited to be here. The first thing of excitement was I was told I don't have to dress like a judge today. I don't have to wear a suit. I could put on some casual pants and casual shorts and my cute heels, and so I did all of that, and I'm happy to be here this morning. We are running hard, and you know, I'm in the middle of campaign season, and so we are making a lot of stops and trying to meet a lot of people, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here because I think it is very important for the community to be educated about what a Superior Court judge does, why that is important, and why they need to be paying attention in general to this election cycle. So I'm excited to be here this morning. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to not be in my suit and to just be ready to talk to you.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Well, it's a complete honor to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us. Thank you. Thank you. And so, can you just, I tried my best, but can you just tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I will. I'm going to kind of start with what led me on this journey. I am the product of a lawyer. So my father was a lawyer, and he was a defense lawyer who did civil practice. And my parents, like so many families do, went through a divorce when I was very young, 7 or 8 years old. And my father actually ended up with custody of me. My mom still complains about it, that he knew all the judges in the building, and so he got custody. And so they had a joint custody situation, but I was with my father a lot. And one of the things when I was with my father is, a single parent, we know when we're working, it's always hard to figure out where do you take your child. And so single parents and parents that are married, we sometimes find that we take our children to work. And so my father's work was the courtroom.
Wow.
And so as a very young child, 7 and 8, our routine became, it was daddy and daughter day, but he had to go to work first. And so we would go to the courtroom, and then we would typically go get my hair done because he didn't know how to do that well. And then we would go for ice cream. But during those mornings at the courtroom, usually Saturday mornings, you know, a lot of people get arrested Friday night. So when you're a new young lawyer, Saturday was a great day to go pick up cases. He would have to go to the back to visit the people that were arrested. And so he had this dilemma that parents have. What do I do with my little girl in a public setting? And so what happened with me is there was an old Irish judge, and that Irish judge saw my father's dilemma and took an interest in me. And I would go up on the bench with that old Irish judge on Saturday mornings. And my father said one morning, he finally asked me, "What are you and the judge up on that bench talking about?" And I said, "Well, Judge Hannon asked me, do they go home or do I send them to the back?" And he said, "He asked you what?" I said, "Yeah, he asked me every morning." So, I think he's listening to me as an 8-year-old. I'm sure he wasn't, but I thought he was. And so one of those mornings when I got off the bench, I told my father I'm going to be a judge. And he said, "Well, Fani, you can't just be a judge. You have to be a lawyer first." So in the way of an 8-year-old, I asked him, "Well, what do lawyers do?" My father said that really stumped him, because how do you explain the complexities of what an attorney does to a 7 and an 8-year-old child? And he said, after thinking for a minute, he said, "You know what a lawyer does? They read a lot, and then they explain to people what they've read, and they help people." And I said, "Well, I know how to read, so I'll be a lawyer." Come on. And so from that day to this day, I knew that this was the journey that I was on. And so that's kind of like the beginning of my life.
Yes.
And my life deciding that I would go into this field. I have absolutely loved and enjoyed the practice of law. I can remember, I always tell people, and it's sad because people judge things in different ways. When I was in high school, my father basically told me, as an African American child, he wanted to make sure that I was supported in a collegiate setting, and that the statistics are, quite frankly, that African Americans do better in black colleges than they do at white colleges. And that is not because that those schools are less challenging, but because sometimes they find more support. And so when it was time for me to go to college, he gave me the list of the 133 the time historically black colleges and university, and said, "Choose one." And so I chose the best one in the country as far as I'm concerned, Howard University. But I can remember when it was time for me to go, there was a vice principal there who did not have a mean bone in his spirit in my high school. And I can remember him telling my father, "Oh, Fani is too smart to go to a HBCU. We should send her to a majority school. I'm sure I can get her into the University of Maryland or all these other schools," which offended my educated father greatly. But it's just the ignorance that people have about society. And he did not mean it to be mean. He meant it to be a compliment. Unfortunately, that day he was talking to a lawyer, and he got schooled about everyone who had graduated, including Thurgood Marshall, our first African American Supreme Court justice, going to HBCUs. And so Howard, for me, was a wonderful experience. It offered everything that could be offered, and I just always appreciate the fact that my father insisted on that. I have a daughter now at Florida A&M, and so we are keeping up the HBCU tradition.
Yes.
From there, though, I did want to make sure that I went to one of the premier law schools in the country, and that school for me became a place I had visited and loved, which was Atlanta. And when I got into Emory University School of Law, I was just elated. I wanted to come on down here.
Wow.
And Emory was also a great experience, and so that is the beginning of my personal legal experience. I went from there to a small law firm, and I always tell people we practice whatever came through the door with some money law.
Right.
If you had a problem and you lived in the Atlanta community and you came to that law firm, we were going to help you. And so we practice family law, which is divorces and child support issues. Certainly if your loved one got arrested, or if you got arrested, we would represent you in criminal defense work. Small contractual disputes. Believe it or not, God is such a good God. There were only 5 lawyers in that firm. One of them is the Honorable Keisha Lance Bottoms. And so when I think about just the path that he leads you on, and you don't even realize the connections, and I know people feel different way about politics and things, but I can tell you my experience with my mayor, or the mayor of Atlanta, is that she was a wonderful human being to me. And so I just made wonderful connections along the road. Went on from private practice, had 2 small children. I saw your daughter. My daughters were about that age. And we decided it was time to kind of go into government work, that would be a better field for me. And so I went to the city solicitor's office and did city ordinance violations and preliminary hearings for murders and charges of that nature. Got put in front of a judge, the deceased and late Honorable Jacqueline Bennett, who was recently passed, and she wrote the district attorney a letter, and the letter said, "You're a fool if you don't hire this lady, because she is one of the best solicitors I have ever seen.
Yes.
And I'm so thankful for that letter, because I had tried to become a DA 3 times and I could not get my letters answered. But upon Jacqueline Bennett's recommendation to Mr. Howard, he hired me, and I will be forever grateful for the experience that I had there. And so at the DA's office, I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but I've literally tried every kind of case there is. I've tried well in excess of 100 cases. I believe in the community of Fulton County. I think Fulton County needs good judges. And so in the words of my mama, you quit your good government job. So I quit my good government job to offer myself up for service. And we are running a great campaign now. And I am so happy for opportunities like this, so I can explain to the community why they need to pay attention to this seat and why it is such an important job.
Wow. And you touched on it. And so let's just dive right into it. Let's bring awareness to the judicial election that's coming up, and tell us about the position you're running for.
Okay, so there are actually a lot of judicial elections coming up, and I just want to talk about each of them and then focus on the Superior Court. And so right now you have a magistrate judge, and the magistrate judge does a lot of landlord-tenants work. And so you have a judicial election there, and that is the person that will be deciding matters if you're evicted or matters involving landlord tenancy. And so you need to educate yourself on that race. We have a chief magistrate and a gentleman running against her at this time who believes that he is right for the position. And so that is one judicial election going on right now in the Fulton County court system. The election that I am running for is the Fulton County Superior Court, and I'm going to certainly talk about that in detail. But you also have 2 judges running for the Court of Appeals, which will be deciding if all the superior courts in the entire state of Georgia have done their job right. And so in that race, you have 2 Kens, a Ken Hodges and a Ken Shigley. And I would just invite your viewership to do their research and make sure that they know which one of these men they want in such an important position. But the Superior Court, let's talk about what they do in Fulton County.
Let's talk about it.
So first of all, Fulton County is the biggest court system in the state of Georgia, and so it's really important in that way. There are 20 Superior Court judges, and each of them carry a caseload of approximately 200 to 300 cases. We'll say 300 cases. Many of those cases, probably a little bit more than half, are criminal cases. The rest are civil cases, major contractual disputes. The Superior Court judges also rotate. So for 18 months at a time, they will come out of doing the criminal and the general contractual cases, and they will rotate into what's called the Family Law Division. And that's where they'll be doing all your divorces, all your child support issues, adoption, everything that has to do with family law is handled in that division, but still by one of these 20 Superior Court judges. What a Superior Court does in criminal is not misdemeanors but felonies. So this is your murders, this is your sex crimes, your rapes, your child molestations, your armed robberies, and your drug trafficking. So they're making very important decisions about keeping our community safe and the defendants that come before them being treated fairly. And so it's very important who will be making those decisions. They also can make decisions in contractual disputes. Are you going to keep your house? And so it's a really important position. You are much more likely to come before a Superior Court judge or be affected in some way, unfortunately, as either the victim of a crime or someone you love is charged with the crime, or you have witnessed a crime, or you're going through a divorce, or you need child support, or you got into a major car accident. For all those reasons, your life is going to take you to a Superior Court judge. And the reality is that position is more likely to touch you than the president, the races that we pay attention to. And so I want to encourage people as we go to the ballots to choose these governors and to choose our state insurance commissioner and to choose, the person that will decide as your representative over your jurisdiction. People go to the polls and they do not vote down ballot. And the reality is your judges and your state representatives, they are so much more likely to impact your life than the president and those policies. And so I think if people are educated and they realize, wait a minute, this is the lady that would be deciding if I get child support. This is the lady that would decide, will I get my children taken from me? This is the lady that will decide if I am the victim of a crime. Do I matter? Because the reality is different victims are sometimes treated a different way. And what I submit to people is when God blesses me with this position and gives me this honor, that I will make sure that all the citizens that come before me are treated fairly, no matter what their educational level is, no matter their socioeconomic status, no matter what their past is. We're going to look at the case that's before us, and they will be treated fairly, both being a victim as a crime or the person that is charged. And it is so important that both the defendant and the victim and the community at large receives a fair forum.
Yes. Wow. And so, I love that. And so I wanted to ask you, about yourself, Fani, throughout the development, and the maturation, of your career. Can you just share some of the defining moments that have helped to shape and mold you into the individual that you are today?
I think what has shaped and molded me is it has been an honor to be a district attorney in this county. But as a district attorney, what you get to do is work with so many different kinds of people.
Come on.
And I got to work with that because, in one role, I was the supervisor of the largest division of any district attorney's office in the state of Georgia. And probably until you get down to Miami in the southeast.
Wow.
And so being the supervisor of 25 lawyers at any given time and training them up, I learned things as I trained them. One, I learned that you become mama as supervisor. That's what and so my children were all different. My children were African American lawyers. My children were Caucasian lawyers. My children were Indian lawyers. They were Asian lawyers. They were heterosexual lawyers. They were homosexual lawyers. They were Buddhist. They came from all different backgrounds. And what I was able to instill in each of them is that every one of you, no matter what your background, is to treat each other with dignity. And certainly we are to treat the community with which we serve, which is not only the victims that we're helping and not only the witnesses, but also the defendants, where we can make such important decisions about their life with dignity. And so it was very defining to me, and that kind of last nail in the coffin, that you can't tell anything about a person by their cover. And so I had, and I will tell people all the time, I had white male lawyers that were brilliant, worked hard, did everything that they needed to do as lawyers. And then I had ones that tried to cut corners. But the same was true of, I had African American women lawyers that were brilliant and worked really hard. And I had ones who cut corners. And so it was that last reminder that a shell is just a shell. And it is the character of the person that matters. But also dealing with the community. You started to learn it doesn't matter if a young man comes in and maybe he's not dressed in the way that we think is suited and booted for court. And maybe he doesn't have 3 degrees behind his name. But that might be the person you meet with the most character that month. And so dealing with the community just kind of reinforced what my father had taught me my entire life, which is that every human being, whether it's a baby or an old person, is entitled to dignity. And it allowed me to use that life lesson. And so I would say the initial shaping came from my father, but just to make sure you knew it was true, God keeps sending you reminders. He sent me reminders all through my career, and I have lived my career like that, and it does define me. And one thing I'm really blessed in this quest is I have as much support from the defense bar and the defense attorneys, because they've been coming to me over the years and saying, hey, I have a defendant and he finds himself in this situation, and can you look at it, and will you treat him fairly? And they know if it's a young defendant or a defendant who has drug issues or there's a mental health issue, that I'm going to try to deal with those issues and treat him fairly while still making sure that society is safe and that the victim is safe. And so you need someone in this position who's not just talking the talk, but walks the walk.
Come on.
And so I invite people to Google me. See, did this girl really do this work? Did she try these 100 cases? And you will find that all kind of cases come up, and that I have done the work, and I have the skill set and the education to do this job and do it well.
I love that. I love, the confidence, that you have. You said Google me. Come on, we have to Google this because, like you said, it's so important, that the individuals that we elect in these positions, that they're not just talking the talk, but they're walking the walk. I love the point that you made, that a shell is a shell. In other words, you cannot judge a book by its cover.
Absolutely not. You cannot judge a book by its cover. It will tell you nothing. And it doesn't tell you about the character of a person, and that is what is so important. It is so important. People always ask me,
yes,
you were making a good money, because I was. For a government worker, quite frankly, I was one of the highest paid DAs because I had more lawyers under me than anyone else, and I'm also always tasked with trying these high profile, very complex cases, and I love being a litigator.
Yes.
I absolutely love it. I love dealing with people. I love talking to a jury. I had the perfect job.
Yes.
And so people ask me, why in the world, lady, are you leaving a job you're so good at, that the community has needed you in, to go put yourself out there for public service? You've been in public service, but you're going to be in a different role. You're going to be kind of the umpire, and you love playing the game.
Come on.
So why do you want to go be the umpire when you love playing the game? And there were really 3 factors that motivated me to say, you know what, I've done this for 22 years. It's time to do this in a different way.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they're not all positive.
Okay.
But they are what led me to saying it's time to do this.
Yes.
So I always tell people, if you don't vote, you don't get to complain about the president or anyone else.
Come on.
And so for me, what I realized is, if I don't become a judge, I have to stop criticizing the judges I see I don't think doing it right.
Wow.
And so I decided to offer myself up. And these are the reasons. One was, I unfortunately have watched different defendants and different victims over the years. In my humble opinion, after knowing the facts in the courtroom and what's going on, being treated differently because I thought they were being judged by their shell. And that is unacceptable.
Wow.
And so I said, if I was in this position, I already have experience of, if I have a white victim or a black victim, what they're going to tell you is that lady is going to fight for you. It made no difference to me. But I have to realize that other people don't feel that way.
Right.
And so it was important that I make sure that doesn't happen by being the one sitting in that chair. The second thing that motivated me is, and it is certainly not true for all the judges, and I don't mean to be disparaging of all the judges, but I have watched judges treat members of the bar, meaning other lawyers, just completely disrespectfully. And that is not the appropriate way that a courtroom should run. When people come into a courtroom, everyone should be referred to by their last name. People should be, they're already afraid. Nobody wants to come to court, okay? There's 2 places we don't like, about 3 places we don't like to go. Nobody likes to go to the hospital. It's not fun. Nobody likes to go see the mortuary because you're there for not a nice reason. And nobody likes to come to the courthouse. And so it is already an uncomfortable experience. But the judge can really set the tone of that courtroom and make what is difficult for people at least a little bit more bearable.
Yes.
And their attitude and their behavior towards the litigants and the attorneys affect the entire environment.
Yes.
And so even if you're there for a reason you don't want to be there, you don't have to be treated disrespectfully. And I was watching that too often. And so I said, this has to stop. So now we at issue 1 and 2. The third issue, I think, is what really just pushed me over the edge, though. In Fulton County, as I said, we have 20 judges. 3 of them are over in the family court doing their business. But the other 16, 17, you have a senior judge that's kind of managing the other judge. And the other 16 judges are hearing those cases that we've been talking about, those criminal cases and those civil cases. And in Fulton County, based on about a third of those 16, maybe even a fourth of those 16, we are getting created what's called a backlog of cases. So what is a backlog? A backlog is cases that if it's 2018, your 2013-14 case is still sitting there. So if you're a victim in a crime, you've been going through this, coming back to the court for 4 and 5 years. And if you're a defendant, you have been too. And if you're a witness, you're wondering what the heck happened to that case where I saw this and it was horrible and it scarred me. As a result of that, one of the last cases I tried was a 5 co-defendant homicide case. And the victim in that case was a Caucasian male. And he 2 degrees, he was an accountant, he worked for the American Cancer Society, and was a great human being. Had 2 small children, a wife he had met when he was like in the 3rd grade, just a love story for the generations. But he, like all human beings, was not perfect, and he had suffered from a heroin addiction. And so they had sent him to rehab, and he was doing better again, right? Because he was back at work, and he had dropped his babies off to school that morning. But that heroin addiction still had him. And so at lunchtime, he went to go seek some heroin. And when he went to seek the heroin, unfortunately, he walked up to young men who had no intention of just making a deal with him, but wanted to rob him. What they ultimately did was take his life. But that case happened 4 years before it got to the courtroom. And I sat with that young man, because he was very young, in his 30s, early 30s, his wife, and discussed with her the pain that she had been living, and she had to go back and forth to court. And I met with that young man's family, his parents, and watched the wear and tear, and probably the years, in their older years, that going through already a death, but then being jerked around by the court system, took on their life. And I thought about those defendants' moms, and them going back and forth, and the money that they had spent on lawyers, and just the time and the energy. And then what about the witnesses who you're making relive an incident for 3 or 4 years? And this whole backlog is created by judges that did not get to their work. Now, when I don't get to my work, I get fired.
Come on.
I know the DA I was working for. I'm gone.
Right.
Why is it that the taxpayers are paying the judges to do the job, and then we are paying very hefty prices to have other competent judges come in and do the work? It just isn't necessary. And people will tell you something that's true. Fulton County has such a heavy caseload. That is true. They do. But the reality is, you have judges that get to their work and get it done. That they never have cases that are 3, 4, and 5 years old, because they manage their courtroom and they get to their cases and they do a good job. And that good job is so important, because the impact on so many people's lives is just forever. And so at the end of that trial, I am happy to say that we were able to give that family closure, and those gentlemen were convicted for taking that husband's life. But I had to take a lot of people through a lot of turmoil 4 years later to get it done. And I wish I could say, well, you know, that was just one isolated incident. We have a whole backlog calendar with hundreds of cases where other families are living that same nightmare. And I just said, you know what, at 3 strikes, you don't know how to treat different members of the community the same. And you are being very disparaging to what are my colleagues. You know, and it's unnecessary. And I am not talking about a judge, because a judge has to manage a courtroom, reprimanding an attorney because they didn't get their work in time, or they didn't serve proper documents. I'm talking about judges that take personal attacks.
Come on.
Being a lawyer is too stressful. You don't need that. And so those 3 reasons of judges not getting to their work, judges being just mean and disrespectful to other members of the bar, and then watching different members of the community be treated differently, are really what I said, you know what? This is like not voting. It's time to offer yourself up for service. And so I have offered myself up, and I have 2 daughters in college, and you know, I am a single mom, and you know, my mother's like, what are we going to do, lady? You decided to do this. But I honestly, and it may sound silly and it may be naive, but as I told my mother, I have a degree from Howard and Emory. If I can't figure out how to feed myself, then there's something wrong. And I feel as though I am walking in God's destiny. And so I hope that people will have opportunities like this to hear me and go through my resume. Let me earn your vote. I'm willing to earn your vote. But what I can promise people is that once they do their research, I believe that they will become comfortable with me. I believe they know that I'm going to always try to do the right thing. It's only one perfect human being that walked the earth. But I am going to tell you that I am trying to walk the walk that I think he would be proud of, and I am offering myself up for service. And I hope that, you know, people will take these opportunities, because there's no excuses not to vote this year. Can we tell the people about the voting schedule right now in Georgia?
We can tell them about it.
Early voting started on Monday, April the 30th. It will go through Friday, and it's typical hours, you know, from 9 to 5. And then this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, they are having polls open. And then next week, all week long again, Monday through Friday, the polls are open. They're again opening on Saturday. They're closing Sunday because it's Mother's Day, and so we're going to respect our mamas.
Yes.
But then it's opening again Monday through Friday. And then the election will take place on the 22nd. Georgia has given people 3 weeks to vote. There are no excuses. And you know, every night I drive my team crazy because we go and pull the numbers, because you can pull the numbers of not how people voted, but how many people have voted. There are over 1 million residents in Fulton County. Do you know on Monday 1,160 people voted? 1,160. And on Tuesday, it was about 1,030. And the same has held through on Wednesday. And so over 3 days, we only had a little over 3,000 people voted. I need people to get to these polls.
Yes.
I need people to realize, not just for Miss Willis and this seat of Superior Court Judge, but we are deciding who will represent us both on the Democratic and the Republican ticket as our next governor.
That's right.
We are deciding who is going to be the next insurance commissioner. People complain about their insurance rates, but they're not out here voting.
Come on.
People are complaining about things that are going on in their local government. Your state representative, if you don't like them, you have a chance right now to vote them out. Or make sure that the ones that are doing a good job stay in. My state representative is William Bodie. He's District 62. I want to keep him. But if I don't go to the polls, I don't get to say that to people. And so I just think that it is so important that we pay attention to all of the, and there's so many more races. The state school superintendent is on this ballot. The person who will decide how we spend energy. We going back to coal or using energy.
Come on.
All of these important races are right now going on in the state of Georgia. Georgia has given you, 18 days plus election day to be able to participate in this process. And I understand people can't get to the polls Monday through Friday. You're working. Your boss won't let you leave. You need to go to work so you can make some money for your family. But there's no reason for 2 Saturdays you can't get there. There's no reason that you can't go to church and then go to vote and go to brunch and have a glass of champagne. You can get it all done on this weekend. And so I am just encouraging people to pay attention and take the next couple of days. I know you take a break at work. Google some of these candidates. Find out who you want to represent, who stands for you, and go and make sure that your voice matters. Because if you don't use your voice, it doesn't matter. And that's just the harsh reality.
Yes, we have to use our voice because guess what, you guys? It matters. We have to make sure that we do everything that we need to do so we can go out and vote. Well, you guys, we're getting ready to take a quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere. I want you to keep it locked right here. You're listening to The Conversation with Maria Byrd.
Thank you for tuning in to The Conversation with Maria Byrd.
So let's have this conversation
On WIGO 1570 AM radio.
Satan wants to sift you like wheat, but no matter how hard he tries, he won't succeed. I got a Father in heaven watching over me, and all I need is faith the size of a mustard seed. So when the rain starts pouring and the tides rolling, when I'm facing the storm instead of fear, I have joy. So let the rain pour. I have joy. Doesn't matter if the rain pours. I have joy. So let the rain pour down. So let the rain pour down. 'Cause in the end, Jesus wins. This I know. I have joy. Once again, you're trying to hurt me, but OMG, I LOL at your defeat. I got my BIBLE and it's all I need. Yeah, on top of that, I got the blood of Jesus and it covers me. So when the rain starts pouring and the tides rolling, when I'm facing the storm instead of fear, I Unshakable joy, a hallelujah joy.
Thank you for tuning in to The Conversation with Maria Byrd.
So let's have this conversation
On WIGO 1570 AM radio.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back. You are listening to The Conversation with Maria Byrd, and you just heard the hit song Joy by recording artist Lindsay Slayton. And guess what, you guys? It's available right now for purchase and on all digital media outlets. You guys, I want you to make sure that you follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook at Maria Byrd, on Instagram at maria.byrd. You can also follow me on the Conversation with Maria Byrd Facebook page, or check out my website at www.mariabyrd.org. If you're watching via Facebook Live, I want you guys to make sure that you share this video. Our goal is at least 100 shares. Where, you guys, we are back with my very special guest, Fulton County Superior Court Judge candidate Fani Willis. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Having a great time this morning. I think we're getting out some great conversation.
Yes, we're having a great conversation, you guys. And before the break, you were just sharing and breaking down really some of those defining moments that helped to shape and mold you into the person that you are today. Just giving us, key information regarding the polls and voting. And so, you touched on something before the break. You talked about how a courtroom should be run, and there may be individuals from the judicial system, other judges, or individuals that's watching or listening. Can you just really break down the proper way to run a courtroom?
Well, in my humble opinion, because I have been practicing law 22 years, I have had the pleasure of seeing it done right. And the way that I think a courtroom should be run right is, first and foremost, that everyone in that courtroom should be treated with respect by the judge. And the judge should make sure that their staff, which a judge's staff is not very much, but they certainly have some, that their case manager is respectful to people, that their office assistant is respectful to people that call, that their court reporter, who is usually just a silent figure in a courtroom, but that's certainly that they conduct themselves in a way that is professional and take down everything. Now, one of the most important people in a judge's courtroom, although they report to the sheriff's office, are the deputies that are in that courtroom. But just like children pick up the way that their parents behave, the deputies pick up the way that a judge behaves. And so deputies, we want them on point, and might not need to be smiley in the morning, but they certainly should be respectful to the people that come there, and they should maintain order so that when people are in that courtroom, everyone feels safe. Because it is an environment that is intimidating. And so at the basics, I would say that's one way that a courtroom should be run. It's also very important for a judge and for the lawyers that practice before them to know that there is consistency, and that judges have what are called case management orders. And those are needed in both civil cases as well as criminal cases. And all those are things that people have on their job every day, which are, I'm expecting this due on the 15th, I'm expecting this on the 30th, I'm expecting this on the 15th of the next month. If lawyers know that, and they know that they will be held to having that, they will get in line and make sure that they comply with those orders, because they know if they do not, that evidence is not going to come before a jury. Why is that so important? It is unfair to a person charged with the crime to be given what we call in the legal system as discovery, which is all of the documents and the papers and the evidence that the state says that they have against you. It is unfair if you're not on notice of that, because there's no way to defend yourself if you don't know what the state has against you. There's no way to make strategic decisions in your case if you don't know what the state has against you. And the state will begin to turn over their evidence on time if they know, hey, if I don't meet Judge Willis or whatever judge it is deadline, my evidence is going to be excluded. Some people may say that's harsh, but what if you're the one there standing charged with the crime and someone's trying to put you in jail for the rest of your days? Do you not deserve to have the information that will be brought against you? And it makes it a calm for everyone involved in the process, because there's no surprises. What we do in court is too important, and people should know what's going to happen. I always had an open, and defense attorneys will tell you, if you can beat me with what's in my file, then you should beat me. But I never hid discovery. I always made sure people had access to all the evidence, and I always served it. And it's something that I always insisted that my lawyers do, because what is going on in that courtroom is so important. And so I think if you have those two things, just a judiciary that is respectful and kind to the members that come before it, and that two, follows some deadlines and has some order in it. And then 3, Lady Justice really should be blind. And it should be a lady in this election. And I just want to say that, in this particular election, I am the only female and I am the only minority running. But that does not it's not what makes me qualified. What makes me qualified is I'm also the only candidate that has served the citizens of Fulton County for every day of my 22 years. And I've had the opportunity to serve in private practice, where I represented citizens charged and represented someone in a murder that was charged with a crime, and that come through the door with some money law firm. So I've had that opportunity to work as a defense attorney. But granted, most of my career has been as a prosecutor. But as a prosecutor, because of the role and the honor that the district attorney gave me of being over the complex division, I got to make decisions every day on whether armed robbery charges should be appropriately reduced. And I made those decisions based on the law, based on the evidence, based on the facts of what they did with those victims in those cases, and based on what their history was. And defense attorneys will tell you, if she hurt them, she probably not, going to do something for you, because you can't hurt human beings in this community while I'm a part of the process. But they will also tell you she's very fair and she listens. I actually had a young lady, a defense attorney, who told me that, she got some kind of, slack, for lack of a better word, that why are you supporting a prosecutor? And all 3 of the people running in this race are prosecutors, but they were asking, you're really stomping hard for Fani Willis. Why are you doing that? Because she's been a prosecutor for 16 years. And she said, I want to tell you a story. And the ironic part is I didn't remember the situation, but she told me she had a young man that was charged with a crime, and that one of the witnesses in the crime was a prostitute. So somebody that society, I guess, would say was of a low level. But, I'm used to dealing with all kinds of society. And she said they made an appointment to come see me on a Friday evening at like 7:30 in the evening. And the young lady stood me up. I didn't even remember. She then told me that she called me back, and, she apologized, and she felt like, that it was over for her client because this witness had not shown up. But that she asked me, I know it's inconvenient, but they can come on Sunday afternoon. Would you come to your office Sunday afternoon? I said, no problem. What she didn't know is I went to Catholic church across the street from the courthouse. So I went, after church, my routine was to go to the courthouse anyway. And so I went across the street, and the young lady came in, and she gave me her account of the facts. And at this point, then I kind of remember the case she was talking about. And she said, I told them, I'm really happy for you all coming in. But, I don't just believe what people tell me. I'm going to need the next 2 or 3 weeks to see if I can corroborate some of these things, as this lady said, because if what she says is true, we have the wrong person. And she said, first of all, most prosecutors don't care enough to even meet on a Friday or a Sunday. It's their personal time. She said, but I almost fell out because 3 weeks later you told me I've had 2 investigators looking at the things your witness says. They're true. She said, you let that case go. She said, I've been in your office plenty of times, and you told me, get out of my office, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. They hurt my victim. She said, but you're always fair. You always listen. You return calls, and you make the time. And when I heard you were running for judge, I'm elated to support you. And this young lady, and I don't think she'll be on if I'm saying her name. Her name is Miss Foster, and she's a die-hard defense attorney. I mean, she believes in the Constitution and the defense of criminal defense attorneys. But I appreciate people like Miss Chinwe Foster and so many other defense attorneys that are supporting me, because she doesn't just talk the talk. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. She has poured her personal money into my campaign and made donations, which you can make at www.faniwillis.com. She has been a mouthpiece to tell people, but she has not done this based on, she just kind of likes me. She's done this based on watching my work ethic. And so one of the things I am most proud of in my campaign is, I just sent my first mailer out, which my hand was shaking. I had to write a check for $37,000, but that's okay because we got it to the people that we need to go about it. But, I hope people will look at it, because I think one thing that is important about it is my endorsements. And my endorsements are from a cross section of the community. And I don't just mean racially, which they are, I have an Asian American, an African American, a Caucasian American supporting me, but they are people in the roles to know what kind of person you need as a judge. And so one of them is the Honorable Bensonetta Tempton Lane. Now, judges cannot get into endorsing candidates, but Judge Lane is retired, and so she endorses me because she knows I've prosecuted over 20 murders in her courtroom. And what she told me is, you were always prepared and you were always respectful, and you're what the bench needs. And so I take that as I am so honored to have that endorsement. But also the District Attorney of DeKalb County has endorsed me because she knows my reputation and my work ethic and how I work. I also have my state representative, William Bodie, who is an African American state representative, but he is also a defense attorney, and he's here to bring cases to me, and he knows that I have done the work. Also, State Representative Jason Park, who is the first openly gay state representative from Gwinnett County, but what he knows is my work on the hate crime bill to try to get it passed, because I do not believe individuals should be treated differently based on their sexual orientation or their color. In my courtroom, this is a very important mission to me, and I cannot express it, and I'm asking people to help me. I'm asking them to help me by going to the polls. I'm asking them to help me by donating money to the campaign. I'm asking them to help me by word of mouth. But what a Fulton County judge does affects so many lives. For 4 years, the person you put in this position will be affecting thousands and thousands and thousands of people's lives. And that is not an exaggeration. They will probably process in that case 1,500 or so cases. But every case has 10 to 100 people that have been affected by it. And so when you think of the ripple effect and the power of this person, don't you want them to be someone that looks at you and thinks that you are worthy?
Yes.
And I am the type of person that will look at these people, know that they are worthy, and make sure everyone in that courtroom gets a fair decision. Doesn't mean everybody's going to love every decision, but it means I'm going to give them a fair and just decision, and we're going to get to the business of work. Yes. Now, I'm known for being a workaholic. My daughters tell me, oh, no, I don't want to be a lawyer. You work way too hard and way too many days. But I am going to bring that same unmatched work ethic to the bench, and we're going to move cases. There's not going to be any backlog in Judge Willis's courtroom. That's not going to happen, and there's not going to be anyone that comes to you and says, she was real nasty to me today. I'm going to be so happy and excited to be in that position. I'm going to make sure that my lawyers are treated well. We're going to treat the clerks with respect in my courtroom. The deputies, they're going to be stern. Now, we're going to make sure everyone's safe, but they're not going to be nasty to people. And we're going to just have a well-oiled machine that treats people with respect, gives victims the justice that they are deserving, but make sure that defendants are not just thrown away. That defendants that have done violence on this community and are repeat offenders, now they got to go. They got to go. We can't have people hurting people in this community. We can't have people that we keep giving you a chance and you just keep breaking the law. That I'm not saying that. But certainly young defendants that their brains just wasn't fully developed. I have 2 teenage daughters, 18 and 20. I am convinced that between about 16 and 24, people make bad decisions, and it should not ruin the rest of their lives. But they have to pay a consequence to society, because every action has a consequence. But it should not be one that ruins their life. And so I am the kind of person that can do that, and I'm asking people to help me and to spread my name, and just hopefully that they can hear me and see me and know how sincere I am in this quest.
Yes, I want you guys, everyone that's listening, everyone that's watching via Facebook Live, I want you to Google her. Google Fani Willis, because I'm telling you, she has the goods. She has the goods. And so let me ask you this, regarding your relationship with God, how has that impacted your life and career?
I think it impacts my life every day. This is one of those journeys where you are so appreciative to God. Let me tell you something. One thing I really appreciated about private practice is, and any lawyer who's in private practice, probably any doctor, anyone who's running their own business knows that, you have real good months, and you have real bad months. And so when I was in private practice, I can remember having bad months and wondering how I was going to make it. And then God would send the blessing. And the work would come, and the money would come. And every month, me and my husband and our 2 small children, we made it. And so there was this constant reminder that God is the provider.
Come on, Fani.
Sometimes when people get into government work, that check just show up every 2 weeks. and they may let go of the reminder that this is still a blessing from God. God has shaped everything that I do, honestly. He I told you I went to Catholic church. I went to Catholic school, and so I have those lessons. And my mother was Methodist, and so I've been to all types of Christian churches, and I respect people of all different religions. One thing I think, if you are a true Christian, you are taught is you may not have the same religion as someone, but you will respect their right to have that choice, and that does not make you think they are less of a human being. You may not think that they are choosing the right God, but you certainly are not going to treat them in a way that is mean. But God has led me through so many things. I just cannot tell you.
Come on, tell us.
All the ways that He has blessed me. The fact that He is sustaining me now. Like, I need to make it real clear. I don't have a dime in salary.
Come on.
But I was able to take some money out of my retirement so we can sustain ourselves for these 3 or 4 months. When I started this campaign, I had $0 to run a campaign.
Come on, Fani.
In the first 2 weeks, because of my reputation, we raised $45,000. That was our January 31st disclosure. On March the 31st, which was the second financial disclosure, my 2 Caucasian male counterparts, one that comes from very good means, we'd outraised both of them $108,000. And I'm not saying that God is just about money, but what I'm explaining to people, to run a campaign, it takes money. And I didn't have any, and I don't have any.
Hey.
But God keeps making a way each way. And so I tell people, I don't know how we going to pay all of my bills yet, but I know every week I'm able to make all of my bills. And on Monday night, literally, my hand was shaking as I wrote a check for $37,491 to the United States Post Office. But God made a way to get the message and this mailer that I discussed with you into 83,000 homes so that they can have enough information to make an informed decision and elect Fani Willis as their next Fulton County Superior Court judge, and to tell people about it. And so God brought you to me. Honestly, I didn't know you before this campaign, but somebody you knew saw me and said, hey, I know this young lady. She does very informative talk shows about different people in society. I don't think people know what a judicial candidate does. Would you talk to her? I said, absolutely. Can you get me on her show? And so I'm here today, and it is other things like that. Another radio show, another religious radio show actually came to me, and the same thing. They felt like their listeners are just not educated. They just wanted them to be educated about what a judge is, and not to necessarily promote me, but just to promote education of what is going on in our society. Why are these roles important? And so I feel like doors keep being open. I'm gonna tell you a little story about how much he does for me. So one of my biggest donors is a older Caucasian female, and she actually lives in Alpharetta, Georgia. Beautiful home with a pool, just gorgeous. Really good people inside and out, have been very successful in their businesses. And so my director of logistics, who you met earlier, William York, had taken her some signs because she's so good financially. I wanted to make sure we put that personal touch on getting her signs. And so we did that one Thursday evening. And a Sunday about 12:30, she calls me personally, not my director of logistics, but me personally, because she's a good donor and we want to make sure she knows how to get in touch with the candidate. And so she was very upset. She was very upset. It was raining that Sunday, and the sign that he had personally placed for her in her yard on Thursday evening at 12:30 p.m., she was working in her home office, heard a door slam, and watched somebody jump in a Lexus and take the sign out of her yard. And they only took my sign. She also had a candidate for mayor sign. And so, she's an older lady, and it really, really upset her. So I spent about 15 minutes on a Sunday when I was trying to do some things to calm her down and to tell her, please get back in your house. Do not get in your car. Because she actually got in her car and went around the neighborhood. I don't know what her plan was, but this is what she did. I told her, go home. And so she went home, but she was so upset that she felt like someone violated her curtilage of her home. She called the police, and she made a police report. And so, a sign cost me about $4. And so it was $4 taken from my campaign. And my position to Miss Smith was, ma'am, Mr. York personally is going to come back this evening and get you your sign. To me, it was done. It's done. People in this game, they take signs. When I woke up Monday morning, in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is a picture of me and an article about my sign being taken. And so I use that to tell you that everything someone uses to try to detract from my campaign, to steal from me, to take away. God just blows it up for bigger. How in the world does a sign being taken get in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with my picture and my resume? She graduated from Emory Law School. She been practicing this long. I said, well, thank you for all this free media for this $4 sign. And so God just constantly turns little situations like that into my good. And that's only one example. I could give you some more. But when I tell you God has been with me this whole campaign, he's been with me this entire campaign. And I know that I am walking in his destiny. I quite frankly believe in 23 days you're going to have to invite me back as your judicial candidate elect. But whatever his plan is for me, I know that I'm walking in his footsteps, and that there were lessons that I needed to learn in this campaign. And I'm going to be honest with you, these days are hard. I don't like asking people for money. It is very hard to get up early in the morning and go till late in the evening. It's hard when you hear that people put on these Facebook groups things that are nasty about you and not even necessarily true. But God is sustaining me.
Yes.
And every day he makes a way. And, right now the mortgage is paid. So we're going to do this. He will do it. And although I will not take this position till January 1st, I believe that the day after this election, some job opportunity will come up for me for 6 months, and I will make it. And so I'm just walking in his faith, and I'm going to keep walking in his faith. And I think he's going to walk me to be the next Fulton County Superior Court judge that literally remembers that seat's not my seat. That seat belongs to the people, and they can take it back. And that's an important point. I want people to know judicial elections do not come up often. Most of the time, the governor gets to appoint. In fact, this year, we have at least 2 judges that are retiring before their term ends. And so the governor of the state of Georgia will get to appoint. They don't always appoint somebody like me.
Woo! Come on.
No matter what that record or that experience was, we have had a huge problem in Fulton County with there not being diverse judges appointed. And so the citizens in this race have a very unique opportunity that does not come up often, quite frankly, because most of these elections are going to go to appointment by whatever party is in office, and that party is quite frankly going to choose someone they know that is friends with them or that has donated. I don't have any money. I haven't donated a lot of money to any governor's race. Okay, I haven't donated any money this time, and so I'm not going to get an appointment like that. And I may not get an appointment because I wasn't the governor's lawyer. I don't have those types of associations. But what I do have is 22 years in the trenches representing the citizens of Fulton County. And what I do have is the knowledge base to do this job good. And what I do have is the character. And I'm afraid of God. I'm God-fearing.
Yes.
I'm going to live my life in a way that is pleasing to him, and I am certainly not a perfect human being. I get angry. I have had disappointments. I have had losses. But at the end of the day, I am God-fearing, and I am going to do what's needed in this position.
Yes. Wow. OMG, you guys. I'm so excited. Make sure that you Google Fani Willis, because you know what, you guys? If we want to make a difference, we have to go and vote, you guys. Well, listen, Fani, will you come back?
I will definitely come back, and I hope your voters will pick Fani Willis and go down ballot on election day.
Yes. Wow, you guys, this has been absolutely amazing. Listen, I want you guys to make sure that you tune in next week because we have something absolutely amazing prepared for you. So you guys remember, next week, same time, same place, on The Conversation with Maria Byrd.
Like it's a touchdown. Finally found me someone I can really trust now. I wish I had so much to say, but no one to say it to.
Thank you for tuning in to The Conversation with Maria Byrd every Friday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on WIGO 1570 AM radio.
So let's have this conversation like a radio station.
WIGO AM 1570, Morrow, Atlanta.
Well, you guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Again, I want to thank my very special guest, Fani Willis. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Yes, ma'am. And so you guys make sure you tune in next week on The Conversation with Maria Byrd.